Well, hello, and thank God it's Sunday. Today, I just wanted to share a little bit about my Sunday and what I have learned today. Today, I went to church and we were discussing, one of the things we were discussing was a verse in the Bible and or a few verses. And I'll preface it and say what it was about. But I did want to read it also, just because I don't want to get too far away from what the words were actually saying. But this concept has kind of come up a couple times today. So it's like the idea about how we need one another. And I was listening to a book called The Common Rule, same author as the book that I recommended on one of my other videos. I'm so bad with names. The other title was Made for People. So if you look up that book, this is another a book by the same guy. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't, commit it to memory, the name of the author. But because I was just mentioning it in passing, and I was listening to this book, and one of the rules, one is prayer 3 times a day. This is something I've been working on with my daily office book that I also showed on here, or was it my inner child who shared her devotional practice? And yes, and it just talks about prayer morning, midday, and evening. And then and that one is, spending some time all around prayer as well, just in meditation, silence, and in the scripture and devotion on the scripture. So when I say devotion, that doesn't quite make sense, but devotion is devoting your time. So devoting your time to the scripture and prayer and silence in the presence of God. So this book was talking about prayer as one. I'm not very far, because I think it's number 2 is a meal a day together. So to make sure that you kind of organize your time and your other rhythms of life, other responsibilities around meals instead of the opposite, and just kind of getting them in there because there's purpose in them, and doing it in that way where we realize eating is something we depend on one another for, whether it's harvesting and growing food, and but they went down to the detail of something gives up its life for us to have life when it comes to eating a meal. So like the whole sacrifice of something as well, we depend on. We have like sort of a symbiotic relationship, obviously, with the earth. And and the creature and the animals. And so anyway, I didn't want to go too far into that, but that's also the same concept, what we talked about, what we got out of the scripture reading from church today, which was that we what was drawn out was the need for the others in that community, the neighbors, which you will hear when I read the verses. So it's in 2 Kings chapter 4, 1-7, I believe. The wife of a man from the company of the prophets cried out to Elisha, "Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that he revered the Lord, but now his creditor is coming to take my 2 boys as his slaves." Elisha replied to her, "How can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house?" "Your servant has nothing there at all," she said, "except a small jar of olive oil." Elisha said, "Go around and ask all of your neighbors for empty jars. Don't ask for just a few. Then go inside and shut the door behind you and your sons. Pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. So that's as far as I think that we went, which was through verse 4. So and then as we do often in our gatherings, we will talk about what jumps out at us from the scripture, just at face value, and started to notice how he talked about, going. He was of the company of the prophets. This was part of their community, and she came to him because he obviously knew her husband, and she referenced how he revered the Lord, and she was left in this predicament with creditors, and in that time, that meant that she had to, that they would come to enslave the sons, and the sons were the ones who would be taking care of her without a husband. So she was in a really hard situation, and what the prophet kind of brought her around to was, go to your neighbors, like ask all of your neighbors, as a matter of fact. And we were kind of commenting on how, do we even know all of our neighbors that well? No, we don't know a lot of us don't. And then to be as belligerent as to ask for not just a few jars, but everything, like all that they had as far as that went. Like, of course they were just empty jars, that they should be able to dispense with, but still, just the fact of, like, she was kind of having to put herself in a desperate situation and ask people whether she know them well or not for all of their jars. And no, there was more, actually. There was a purpose in it, and there was kind of a miracle that took place, but she had to look at that and go, like, why am I having to do this? She could have, but she was desperate enough to do it. And what was brought out was she really had to depend on the others in her community, and it brought about what it brought about was something that was productive and fruitful for everyone. So the rest goes like this. She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, "Bring me another one," just like he said. But he replied, "There is not a jar left." Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what is left." Could actually live on what is left. And one of the other people there today mentioned, well, they didn't say that, it didn't sound like she was just going to be getting by, but she was going to be living on that, and her son. So, what that produced was bountiful for her to do what the prophet, said she should do. And it really involved her. He didn't just, make it happen. It was miraculous as it was. She had to go to the community, just like she did in the beginning, and she had to follow that line, of putting herself out there. And I just thought that was pretty neat. That it also came up in what I was listening to later today, just trying to get in some productivity in my yard today. And such a beautiful time of the day. I don't know if you can't really tell, but it's getting to be dusky, and it's a beautiful Sunday evening now. But yeah, just kind of kept coming around to that message about, depending on one another for our own sustenance and our own growth. And I know that we talk a lot about how important relationship is on my channel, but I thought I would make sure to let you know it's not my word. See, it's don't take it from me. That's what my dad used to say. Read it for yourself, he would tell us. So I just wanted to jump on and say happy Sunday and the start to a hopefully wonderful week for everyone. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a good weekend, and I am feeling very thankful. I'll see you on Let's Talk About It Tuesday.